Will Smith still trying to beef with Chris Rock 3 years after the slap heard round the world. Sad. Just sad. You know you washed up like a pair of skid mark drawers when you gotta keep putting the name of another man in your mouth just to stay relevant. Now available in paperback and e-readers, All About Nikki, a fabulous first season. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air meets Clueless in this absolutely fabulous African-American 1990s teen sitcom. Get all 13 episodes of All About Nikki, the fabulous first season, in paperback and e-readers today. Better get the coleslaw, y'all, cause we're having us a barbecue. Will Smith decided to take a shot at Chris Rock on his brand new rap album. Now, Will Smith decided to release his first brand new rap album in 20 years based on a true story, and in one of the songs he decides to reference the infamous slap he participated in at the 2022 Oscars. Now, back at the 2022 Oscars, Will Smith decided to storm up on the stage after comedian Chris Rock made a joke about his wife Jada Pinkett Smith being in G.I. Jane 2, a joke that he had made, and decided to slap Chris Rock, telling him to keep his wife's name out of his bleeping mouth. However, in the aftermath of that entire incident at the Oscars, Will Smith, who won Best Actor for his performance in King Richard, wound up being the big loser, winding up being barred from coming to the Academy Awards for 10 years, and winding up getting caught up in a scandal that basically wound up destroying and tarnishing his entire public image. Now, Will Smith has been trying to find a way to make a comeback and try to revive his fallen image as related to that entire incident at the Oscars, and I don't know if this is the thing that's going to help him as related to anything, because this whole new album he created based on a true story, the story that's behind it is that the album is a flop, and with the album barely selling, again, only about 800 copies overall, it's looking like people aren't interested in the story of this album, and that's why Will Smith and his publicity machine are trying to go back to the beef between him and Chris Rock, where he basically is in a place where he's in a rut, because at this point nobody cares about this whole incident between him and Chris Rock, because basically nobody respects Will Smith as a man anymore. Now, there was a time when Will Smith was considered one of the kings of the box office, and a guy who was known to be so bankable that they could go out here and offer him $20 million a picture. However, that entire image of that box office superstar basically wound up falling completely apart when people found out that the action hero they watched in many movies as a strong masculine man was completely emasculated behind the scenes. Now, what really destroyed Will Smith's image really was not the slap at the Oscars, but the kick in the nuts given to him by his wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, who brought him on the Red Table Talk show that he produced and openly emasculated him by talking about how she was in an entanglement with her son's best friend, August Alsina, and as Will Smith basically sat up there and let this woman emasculate him on the air, this destroyed the entire image and reputation of Will Smith in just one episode of this talk show. And as Will Smith's reputation wound up getting destroyed, he was no longer seen as a masculine man anymore, but was better yet seen as a beta male who basically was completely submitted to a wife who had no respect or regard for him. And that's what made it hard to basically rebuild Will Smith's reputation after the slap at the Oscars, because after that G.I. Jane 2 joke, this is where Will Smith showed how his wife basically had his testicles inside of the change purse of her Birkin bag, and as she had his testicles inside of the change purse of his Birkin bag, she basically telegraphed a look to him that led to him storming up on that stage, slapping Chris Rock, and then telling her to keep his wife's name out of his bleeping mouth. But the whole thing is, that basically showed how much of a wimp he actually was and had no control over himself as a man. And that's what caused Will Smith to wind up losing face. And after he lost face, this is where his career went to an ignominious end. An ignominious end he's trying to salvage as related to trying to reclaim his masculinity as related to things. Now, the first thing he tried to do was try to write a book, but that failed. And then he went on a trip to find himself, and that failed as well. And with that, he decided to cut a rap record in an effort to try to salvage his face as related to his career. But there's no way to salvage his face, because when a man loses face optically to the world after humiliating himself, people lose respect for him. And that's what's happened here with Will Smith. He's lost all respect as related to being a man. And he thought, oh, since that's not working because his album wasn't taking off, he decided to come full circle, going right back to Chris Rock and trying to rekindle a beef between himself and Chris Rock. But sadly, that's not going to work, because Chris Rock basically won $20 million out of Will Smith, or $40 million, I don't know how much it is, and basically won the whole situation because he appeared to be the bigger man by maintaining his composure even after the slap, continuing to laugh it off the way men usually handle a situation. Meanwhile, Will Smith is the one who came out of this whole situation looking like a pathetic loser, and further continues to look even more pathetic because optically, again, he continues to not understand the reason why he's not over with people in the public anymore is due to his wife emasculating him in public and him not taking his power as a man. Now, Will Smith refuses to divorce his wife Jada Pinkett as related to her infidelity and the complete disrespect she's shown him on Red Table Talk. And as he's been emasculated by his wife, he refuses to take his respect as a man by checking the woman who disrespected him. And instead of dealing with the woman who disrespected him, what he's doing is continuing to try to beef with another man. Again, this is what beta males go out here and do when they can't check the woman. They continue to start with a man. And what Will Smith's PR people are telling him to do is to go back to Chris Rock instead of going to check Jada Pinkett, and that's basically taking his career into a further slide into decline, because again, optically, he's not looking like a strong man at all as related to having any strength of character, and that's what's doing damage to his image, that's what's doing damage to his brand, because he was again presenting himself as the strong masculine man. But when we look at this man's house, we don't see a house that's in complete order. No, we see a house that's in complete chaos, where again Jada Pinkett Smith has his testicles in a Birkin bag on her shelf of purses, and we see his son basically being completely effeminate and confused and looking despondent. We see his daughter basically just completely out here. We see a family completely out of order, and that's where Will Smith's whole image basically falls completely apart, because his house ain't on point, his house is not in order, and he's trying to go out here and trying to salvage his image, not understanding every effort he's making is making him look worse, making him look more and more beta, because the beef between him and Chris Rock was basically over 3 years ago when Chris Rock won the beef, and the only thing he could have done was to go out here and get his house in order. But Will is too scared to get his house in order because he's afraid of, again, having to lose money. But the thing is that he's lost his intangibles of manhood. He's lost his intangibles of manhood, such as his dignity, such as his self-respect, such as his self-worth, and is now out here trying to salvage things after his album flopped, hoping, hey, if I make a reference to that as related to the album, this will get people interested. But people just don't care anymore. No, they don't care about Will Smith anymore, because Will Smith has shown us that he is not a man of good character. He has shown us that he is not a man who is a man who can lead. No, he's shown us he's a pathetic man, and now he's desperate to try to salvage his career at 56 years old, when most people basically just want him to go off into the sunset, because now we have this image of Will Smith that is not appealing anymore. No, we have an image of Will Smith that basically shows us that he's, again, a soft, emasculated, weak man who basically has no backbone and no stones, and he's no longer somebody we see as the bold, dynamic action hero from movies like those that were made out back in the 90s, like Wild Wild West, or films like The Enemy of the State, and many of the films that became box office hits. No, we've seen a picture of Will Smith that shows us a picture of a man that nobody respects or regards anymore. And that picture is one that he's showing he's making no effort to try to salvage. No, what he's trying to do is try to, again, continue trying to rebuild on old things that were popular. But the last thing he's done is, again, try to reference this ignominious event as related to trying to cover up the ignominious event of him having this latest record wind up flopping. And this record wound up flopping because, again, he's just coming at this not from a place of creativity or imagination, but a place of desperation. And as he comes at things from a place of desperation, he's basically trying to claw his way back up to the top of the entertainment world, where he no longer is a star anymore. And in fact, there are not stars anymore. I mean, social media ended the era of the movie star, so he's trying to get back to a place that doesn't even exist anymore. I mean, the days of entertainers going out here and having center stage just based on their name is over. And the only way for Will Smith to get out of this situation, again, is to reclaim his manhood and masculinity. But sadly, he doesn't have the backbone or the stones to file for that divorce that would take his respect. No, he says he's going to stay with his wife, and as he stays with his wife, this is what made people lose face as related to people. And as he's lost this face as related to people, this is where Will Smith has lost the respect of the audience, and that's why nobody really cares about Will Smith, because I didn't know about this whole situation, again, until about early last week, and it wasn't even reported that heavily. I mean, that's how little regard the mainstream media has for Will Smith at this point. They no longer even see him as anybody important, because he doesn't see himself as important enough to take the lead in his own life and handle his business. And that's why nobody trusts him to handle business anymore, or even see him as a priority. Now, he was doing all this, again, with his PR machine, thinking, oh, okay, we'll talk about this other song as related to Chris Rock, but this album came out in April, and again, that would have been the time to talk about that. But the whole thing is, the album in itself did not get over, and it didn't get over because Will Smith is a performer from a different time, and in 2025, people are past the slap that happened 3 years ago. We're past the days of Will Smith being emasculated even before then, in 2021, by his own wife. And Will Smith has gone from being a top star in Hollywood to being a faded star who's about to be washed and folded like old laundry at the laundry's place, and about to be hand delivered, and as basically being washed up. He's basically done at this point. And outside of him, again, going out here and divorcing Jada, there's not much that can be done as related to his optics, because I don't see him as somebody people respect to go see his movies. No, they basically see him as a joke. They see him as somebody, again, they don't respect. And that's one of the worst things that can happen to an entertainer, is be somebody that people don't respect. Because if they don't see you as somebody who basically has their house in order, has their stuff together, then people don't have an incentive to go out here and see you in any way, shape, or form. And again, the way this is being covered as related to not even being important, that's just showing how all of those in the mainstream media basically don't see Will Smith as relevant to anyone anymore. Now, if you want to check out my screenplay book about a faded former teen sitcom star similar to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, You can check out my screenplay book, All About Marilyn, which details the star, Marilyn Marie, who starred in the TV show All About Nikki. And you can check out the fabulous first season of All About Nikki, that 90s teen sitcom that Marilyn starred in the book All About Nikki, the fabulous first season. And you can find both of those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find All About Marilyn, you can only find All About Marilyn on Amazon, but you can find All About Nikki at other online booksellers like Draft to Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you want to see me take more celebrities to the barbecue, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and Kindle, All About Marilyn. Learn all about the struggles of a faded former teen sitcom star in this absolutely fabulous 5-star screenplay. Get All About Marilyn in paperback and Kindle on Amazon.com today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.